Hello, everyone, and welcome to Carolina Breast Friends YouTube channel. Thanks for being here with us. My name is Carrie Williams. I am the Programs and Volunteers Director here at the Pink House. And tonight we have a lovely session with three different women with three different stories. And I look forward to sharing those with you. And I hope that it's going to bring you some awareness and hope and education on the options of having children after a breast cancer diagnosis. So we'll start with Miss Brandon.
My name is Brandon. I was diagnosed with stage 1 breast cancer in 2018. I was 37 at the time. I had one child. I had an 11-month-old daughter at the time I was diagnosed. And really, we were actually in the process of trying to have a second child when we discovered the lump in my breast. So was actively trying to grow my family at the time. But due to the fact that I needed to go through hormone therapy as well as chemo, we had to put those plans on hold. We ended up retrieving embryos in the couple of weeks before the start of chemo. And we worked with the Women's Institute over at Atrium, and were able to retrieve 2 embryos, and then those were stored on ice while I went through all of my treatment. And then we decided to pursue a gestational carrier to help. And my second daughter was born a year ago last week, and almost exactly 3 years after I finished treatment. One of the things Carrie mentioned that you all might be interested in learning about is if I was talking to a friend who was thinking about going through surrogacy or the process of using a gestational carrier, what advice would I have? And I guess a couple of things come to mind. One is that I think the infertility aspect of having breast cancer was, for me, the hardest part of it. And I probably am privileged to be able to say that because I had stage 1 breast cancer. But yeah, it was the hardest part for me. And I think partially because treatment, there was like a plan and a pretty clear like outcome that was going to come out of it, or at least I knew when I was done. And like it also coming out of surgery, like you could like come out of surgery, have a mastectomy, and like mourn the fact that you didn't have breasts anymore and move on. And I felt like the infertility just went on and on and on, and it was like this constant of like, are we going to grow our family, are we not? And I kind of just got to a point where I was like, I just want to know, like, if we're not, then great. Like, we'll be a family of 3 and that'll be wonderful. And I can grieve and move on. But it was just sort of always hanging out there. So I think it took a lot longer than I expected that it would. And that was probably a surprise to me that it was the harder aspect. The other thing I would say is egg retrieval was harder than I thought it would be. I feel like I had friends who, like, you hear about all these people going through IVF and egg retrieval, and you think, it must not be that hard. It must be pretty easy. The doctors seem to kind of downplay it, like, oh, just like go retrieve some eggs. I don't know. For me, it was challenging. I was nauseous the whole time, just as I was when I was pregnant. I was nauseous after this procedure. I just found it to be, it's compared to everything else that cancer patients go through, it's a walk in the park. But I think I expected it to be a real walk in the park, and I should have had a different expectation of it going into it. I think it would have helped my attitude. And I guess the third thing I would say, that if I was talking to a friend, is modern medicine is incredible. Like the fact that we were able to retrieve eggs and create embryos, and then 3 years later have a child through a surrogate, was entirely surreal, and is amazing. And every time I look at my daughter, I can't really believe that she exists. So, and I think the last topic you suggested we might talk about is what kept us going when things got really, really hard. And it was really just a hope for, I knew we had these embryos, and I just felt like I owed it to them. That's probably it.
Yeah, wonderful. I'm Tara, and I am 40 years old. I was diagnosed when I was 32. It was back in 2014 with stage to be ER/PR positive breast cancer. I was single at the time, and I felt like everything kind of hit me at once. It was like you got diagnosed, and then, oh, what do you want to do about your fertility? I was fortunate; I was dating someone at the time, and we joke now and say that he proposed because we thought I wasn't going to make it, and here we are, almost 10 years later. He's stuck with me. So I had a fiance at the time and had to make a decision what to do, and so we decided to make embryos. Which kind of went against what I had always thought. First comes love, then comes marriage, then comes a baby in the baby carriage. And I was making babies with a man that I hadn't married yet. But that's what we ended up doing. I ended up with 4 embryos. And then in 2016, we were ready to start a family. We had been married for a couple of years. The doctors were not eager for me to come off hormone therapy to begin trying. So we went with the gestational carrier. We actually found someone that was a friend of a friend that just enjoys being pregnant, and it's something she always wanted to do. And my friend thought we would be a good match, and it was. We just hit it off. We had an open arrangement. The lawyer said it was not the typical way that you find your gestational carrier, and it works, but it worked. We had our son. He's 5 years old. And then last year we started thinking about wanting another one. I was approaching 40 and felt like, if I was going to do anything, it was going to be in the next little bit. Talked to my oncologist about it. She was in full support of coming off of the tamoxifen in order to have the baby and carry the baby myself, because that's something I wanted to experience personally, was carrying a baby and delivering. So we went through the transfer with the same group of embryos. So we joke and say that our son and daughter are the same age, but they're 5 years apart when they came to Earth. But they were frozen in the same little batch. I carried my daughter full term, didn't have any complications, and she's now 3 months old. So I have a newborn at home, and we're just getting to the point where she sleeps all night. But we are we're beyond thrilled. Like, we didn't realize we needed her to complete our family. We weren't complete. One thing I would tell people that I wish I'd known back then is you don't have to put all your eggs in one basket, literally. So I was young, I was 32 years old, newly engaged, and I felt a little rushed through the process of egg retrieval and what to do with them. And so we just signed on the dotted line, and before I knew it, I'd made all embryos and I hadn't saved any eggs. And luckily I have a very successful marriage, but now that I look back, I wish someone had told me, girl, you don't know that marriage is going to last, and that's the man you want to have all your children with. And this may be your only moment in time to get those eggs and to have that security for yourself. So I wish I had thought about that, and someone had advocated for me or taught me to advocate for myself, to say, wait a minute, pause. Let's look at how many eggs I got, and let's make some arrangements. Let's say I want to make 2 embryos and I want to keep 2 as eggs for myself. And so that's something, like, it worked out for me, but it could have gone completely the opposite direction, and I could have no children because if I didn't end up staying with my husband. And the motivation for us, I think, throughout the entire process, my mom became like my grounding person. So whenever I was just kind of flying off the rails and just was not thinking logically, we had made kind of a code word, and our word was, you want a baby. And it was, by any means necessary, I want a baby. It may not mean that I'm going to carry the baby. It may not mean that the baby will be biologically mine, but that was my grounding of, what are you trying to do? And I was like, I want to have a baby. I want a baby in the family. I want to grow my family. And Mom said, you just have to remember that one thing. That's what you're trying to get done. And the plan may not go as you want it to go. Clearly you have breast cancer. That was not in your plan, and you're just going to deal with whatever you deal with, and know at the end you're going to have a baby. So that's what I did.
Tell us about your journey.
When I was 23, back in 2007, a long time ago, I was diagnosed with breast cancer. I did the double and then reconstruction. I did not have radiation at that point. At that point, we did the surgery, and they did do chemo. It's kind of like the Oncotype. It was one of those where it's like half and half, if I did it or versus not. But she went for doing it just with my age and everything. So after chemo, when I finished that, I was ER/PR positive, HER2 negative. So I did not have to do the year of Herceptin. And at that point, it had not ran in our family or anything. And I'll explain why I say at that point. So I was on tamoxifen, if I'm remembering correctly. That's the premenopausal, right?
Mhm.
Yeah. Okay. So I was on that for about 2.5 years. And my doctor had told me, with the tumor markers that a lot of doctors don't go off of it, that it's, because our bodies can throw it off anyways. But she just so happened so she did the test like she always did, and she had seen it go up. And just from hearing other ladies speak about, the tumor markers going up, and mine weren't nothing compared, but they had just, spiked. So she was like, well, let's do, just in case, let's do a PET scan. So they did a PET scan. And then at that point, that's when they found it in my bone. It was in my left sacral ala, which is like right back here. Seems to be like a common spot though.
Really?
Like, or I don't know if it's common, but a lot of people, it's like,
your pelvis.
yeah, it's in your pelvis. Like,
Oh,
the back part,
okay.
like right here.
Okay.
And they said, and I don't know if it's, I assume, well, I guess it's not, it's all bone stuff, but mine, they said, was like, when you have like a peppermint and you suck on it for so long and it's got the little holes in it, that's kind of how mine looked, rather than being a tumor like on, that could be taken off. Which still, I don't understand a whole lot about that, but so once I had found out, that's when, they explained to me stage 4, what that is. And that at that point, they did not want me to have children. And they had me going to Duke just because there was a doctor there that specialized in young women with breast cancer. And she wanted to just kind of have someone take a second look. And that's when we went up there. That's when we found out that they suggested that I not carry children myself. And it seemed like we had to make the decision really quick. I don't know about everyone else, but I felt like we had to kind of make it that day before we left to know if we wanted to go see a specialist, for fertility and eggs and those things. But I guess with my husband, he's adopted. And I guess me and him both, it's something that we had thought about, I guess, before we even talked about it, because we hadn't even talked about kids. We'd been married for about 2 or 3 years. We had been together for about 7. But, in our relationship, we were just kind of like, oh, okay. We were more ready than we thought, though. I guess that once you're told that, it's like, all right, let's get on the ball, because you're not telling me that I'm having a baby one way or another. So we pretty quickly decided that we would go with adoption. And it's wild how things worked out for us. But the first kind of steps we took, and the first things I worried about, just from reading online, and I'm sure you guys know this too, they say the life expectancy, and then, you got to prove, like a lot of agencies were saying, you've got to prove. How did they put it? I thought it was crazy how they put it, but how long you're going to be around. Well, no one knows that. Yeah.
Right.
So, the whole time I kind of worried about that as we were looking into things, and but it worked out for us, because really all I needed was my doctor to say, yeah, she's fully capable to take care of a kid. And it was just a letter saying that she agreed that it would be okay. So that was very nice. And it was a very interesting process, I will say. I'm just trying to go back.
Right.
He's 11 now. So we had started looking into agencies and things, in which seemed, there were ways in, but it got a little discouraging at times. And then we had a friend that she worked with some foreign agencies, and we were looking at Honduras. And this was like probably 2 years before they stopped doing the adoptions. But it was a little boy, and I think he was about 3. He had a lot of health concerns. And we were actually thinking about, we were going to bring him here and try to do what we could, but he was not healthy enough to try. But I did hear later that he was doing well. He had his surgery, and they were worried about, him making it through surgery and all. But so we had that, and I guess it was like a month later, we had had people just like kind of in our community, or family or family friends, churches, things like that, with the word out there that we were looking to adopt and things like that, which is weird. You wouldn't think that would work these days, I guess. But I had been told about this girl that she was looking into adoption for her child, and that she was pregnant. She was probably 3 or 4 months at that time. But then we were told that she had already decided. So, just kind of went on. But I'm at work one day, a few months later, and my mom calls me and she's like, "You got to meet her." And I was like, "What? What are you talking about?" I'm like, "What?" And she's like, "You got to meet this girl." And I was like, "What girl, Mom?" Because I didn't think there was any prospects or anything. And so the girl had changed her mind about the couple. I think that they were maybe misleading. And so she was willing to meet me. And she was in labor early, but I guess it was 11 days. So she was I guess you're in labor, but they kind of stop it. Yeah. So they stopped her labor because he ended up being born at 50 and a half weeks, or no, that's not right. 10 and a half weeks. 10 and a half weeks. I'm sorry. 10 and a half weeks early. I said that wrong. So, they were worried about his lungs and things like that. And the whole time, like when I first met her, because she had done this process before. And this was just someone that my mom, her friend that she used to work for, knew from their family that she went to church with, or something like that. And we knew we wanted it to be a private, closed, that kind of thing. But, so the girl wanted to meet me. I went up there and I met her, and it was very interesting, yeah, it was very, very interesting. But, I will say I commend her, for the decision she made. And I think she felt comfortable with it. But, and she kind of helped in the sense of, I didn't know what to do next, kind of thing. I knew that we had to get our legal things done. And then, so finally she had told us that she had chose us to be his parents. She told us just to get an attorney, and that she had done this before. And so we went and we got us an attorney, and we did, like I said, the private closed adoption. And it's really crazy the way things are done. Some things still done. Like one thing that blew my mind was, so in the process of kind of doing it with just your own attorney and not through an agency, like if the biological mother isn't aware of the father, who the biological father will be, then what do you do in that point? Right. So do you know they actually put it in the newspaper?
That's the whole section.
And that blew my mind. Yes, for 7 days.
So they put the mother's name, and like this mother had a child.
Yeah.
We're looking for the father.
If you think you may have fathered a child.
Yeah. I was like, really? So, and then there's time frames in between that she had with temporary like custody and things like that. But he was in the NICU for about 5 weeks. He was born. He was 4 pounds, 7 ounces. He was tiny. I'd never seen a baby so tiny. We were scared to death. Oh, we were so scared. But I'll say the NICU ladies, because he was in there, like, I think we got a training course that a lot of first-time parents don't get, you know, that was beneficial. Yeah, and it was wonderful. And they, you know, so after she had him, and it was quite nice because like she wanted me to even be able to be there when he was born and things. And as soon as I got there, she gave me the bracelet like the father would have. And yeah. And so, and that's the last time I seen her, which is, you know, I think about her, you know, wondering about her and everything. But he's 11 now. He starts 5th grade tomorrow. He's quite the fella. He's brought so much into our world. And he's just like us.
Oh,
He is just like us. But I feel like that, I guess my thing, you know, we had talked about what we would tell someone. I would share with someone you know, about this, and that things can happen even if we're told they can't, or, you know, that it's going to be hard. I had an experience where, you know, well, I had one friend tell me, well, why would you adopt a baby in your situation? And I was like, well, because I'm not going anywhere, you know, till I'm supposed to. And why not, you know, have our family? And, you know, and then when we were looking for attorneys, I had called this attorney, and someone had suggested him to me, and he lit into me about how it's going to be awful and there's so many problems and how I don't want to do this. Yes. I cried my eyes out. And I was like, why is he saying this? You know, why would you ever? But, you know, getting through that, it was a whirlwind, and it was, I'm thankful.